Mikee P, Mike Bobosi back in the Money Players podcast. Another week, another Assiniboia Downs show. And normally Ray Cotolo is the one hosting me for different horse racing entities. However, he is a handicapper and he can pick a winner or two in his day. So I brought him in as a guest for this week's Assiniboia Downs. Ray, I know it's Hambo week, but we got some thoroughbreds to look at.
Yeah, the racing is happening everywhere, big or small. I'm glad I can still pick winners because most of the time when I was growing up, everyone would really point out how I picked my nose. And it's nice to be able to detract from that and try to build a better resume, I guess.
Well, I know you're into the Canadian thoroughbred racing for sure. We do a fair amount of segments for Woodbine, and ASD is a signal that is in a perfect spot in that schedule. We've got Tuesday and Wednesday nights, 8:30 Eastern time. We got low takeouts. This week, we got some pretty big fields. And of course, that late pick four that we're going to cover with that dollar minimum has been producing massive pools. So lots of horse player friendly things that we plug every week.
And I believe it's a pretty big guarantee too for a weeknight of racing. It's like what, $50,000 the pool usually?
Yeah, they guarantee 50, but the pools are typically well over 100. So they could probably guarantee it at 100, and I think that we would get there almost every race day. That's how big and how well the handle's doing at Assiniboia every week.
And that's a Tuesday night. Like the thing that mostly happens on Tuesday night is like half off wings at your local dive bar.
Well, you can eat the wings and watch the races on Tuesday. And we have an 8-race card Tuesday night at Assiniboia. This is the show for July 29th. We're going to look late pick 4, and that's going to start in the 5th race. Typically, there's 7 races. We got 8 races on Tuesday and some big fields, Ray. We're going to start with a maiden 7,500. Remember, dollar minimum, 5.5 furlongs here. This is a very, very difficult race. We were talking off air. You said you liked the first 2 races. I'm more of a fan of the second 2. Kick it off for us. Let's get this pick 4 started.
Well, for me, first off, this is probably like my deepest look this season at Assiniboia. I've been following, what you guys have been saying through the meet, and even years past, I've looked over at the races, and it's a tough track to orientate yourself to. A lot of times these are horses that will like reemerge from lesser circuits and race up there in Manitoba. And, I have some familiarity with that. I grew up at Penn National. And so I have an idea of how to read those types of form cycles as opposed to like looking at a Del Mar or a Saratoga type meeting. And what I at least like about the first 2 races is I feel like I have a decent footing because you and I both understand that what we read on the program here at Assiniboia, there's a lot of allowance we have to give to these lines, to these class drops, to even like distance changes and stuff like that, because these horses sometimes are not super consistent. Sometimes they are. And especially starting in a race here where we have 2 horses under 2-1 on the morning line, I always feel worried that one of these 15, 20-1s is going to pop through on something that I could have caught had I looked for like an extra minute or so. I'm curious if you feel that way, but I think that this could be a pretty straightforward race to open the sequence. One where, you could take both of the chalks if you just wanted to progress to the next leg, but you'd be doubling your ticket costs then. I feel comfortable siding with the 6 Silver Creek Kid, who's the higher of the 2 favorites at 8-5. The Brainiac at 6-5. I don't know that I really trust his speed. This is one that can probably get out of there, try to get the lead. But I like how the 6 horse specifically, Silver Creek Kid, grinds into the action. And in a setup in a race like this and how it could set up, I think that has more weight to it than a horse potentially being able to get an easy lead. So I'm feeling comfortable going on the 6. And again, you're probably a good barometer for how off base my analysis is here because you've been looking at this stuff every week. Are you of a similar mindset?
I am actually. I'm not crazy about the 4 Brainiac here. The 6-5 morning line, I think, is quite low on this one. I know shipping from Canterbury. If you look at this horse's lines, they've tried him at several different distances. They even tried him at 4.5 at Turf Paradise. And this horse seems to race and run the same race every time. They tried a couple 7 furlong races at Canterbury. And and this horse didn't race very well. He's bet all the time, which means that maybe he looks a contender in all these races, and yet he's finishing 4th, 3rd, 6th, 5th. I mean, there's just too many, off the board type finishes for me for a horse that's bet like that in those races. Now he ships up here. He gets the top jockey in here, but he's going to take a ton of money. And I agree that Silver Creek Kid, you mentioned, is a grinder. He drops to 7,500 here. Taphorn's Barn, I know he's only 6 for 51, but he's very sharp. And a lot of his horses really typically race very well off drops. I like the fact that Stevenson gets back on this horse. I do think that this one plays a little better than the 4 and will provide more value in this ticket. But I think that there are others that you could consider in this race. And I thought the 2 Will to Par. I know that this horse comes off a double bar race, but it's Jason Homer here. You get the apprentice jockey, showed speed in the past. So this is a horse that I thought maybe, I know it's a 7-year-old in here, but you get, just a different face with an apprentice jock on a horse that showed speed. So I thought maybe you could use that one. And then the 1 Do Not's another one that I thought you could use. Faced 2 lifers last time. Now you drop it to a maiden 75. It's Jared Gourneau. He's got 9 wins so far since his return. He's 24%. This horse showed speed last time and tired quickly. Maybe he needed that race. I like the connections. I like the fact that it's a wide open race. So when you're looking for alternatives, I mean, I probably would be heavy 6 on the A line, maybe a little 1-2 on the B line.
Yeah, my main thing with the 4 having to go forward there, aside from being a Canterbury shipper, that's probably going to be a reason why he takes money. He's also got to be towards the front, and at the inside, those 2 horses are going to want to go as well. So that also doesn't really paint a potentially good trip for the 4 unless he can be one that can stalk and then pounce, because you get a apprentice jock on a speed type. They're going to want to go forward. I'm not sold, though, off of 2 years, and those workouts don't really leave anything great to the imagination either, that he's going to be able to do that speed mission. So I feel comfortable going with the 6. The second leg, though, I really do want to pick your brain on, because I really don't know how to feel about the favorite in that one. It's also a maiden claiming race. It's 5.5 furlongs, 7,500. And it's a big field, but I don't know. What do you do with Forgot the Rose's morning line favorite? I just don't see any room for her to get a good trip here.
Yeah, I don't like her at all. She's 0 for 10. She gets a rider switch. She has an outside post. And I don't understand the 5-2 on the morning line here for, a jockey that's 2 for 62. I mean, it's one thing to take him on the horse that's going to be 20-1 in the race prior, but in this race, I don't see the value whatsoever in a horse that's had a ton of chances and just doesn't seem to find a way to get there. And this rider does struggle from outside posts. I don't want that one at all in this race. I was going to look to single maybe the 3 Cundy 10-1 morning line, and you get a different jockey switch. You get Whitehall now after the layoff. This horse has Laurel Lines where that did get checks. Now this horse is over 26, and I get it. I mean, this isn't a great, horse to be singling here, but just looking at this race, I just don't like anybody else. I really don't like the 2 who's 3-1 morning line. That's a homebred that comes off an 11 buyer that's named after the owner. The 1, I mean, has a 2 for 35 jock, comes from the rail and just seems to go backwards all the time. I do think that the fact that this horse gets, Whitehall here in this race for a barn that's 15% so far, at least this horse has some back lines that, maybe fit in this race. Now, over 26 is really hard to take, but I don't mind the workout, on July the 17th since the last start. There's just things to like for me in a race where I really do not like some of the horses that are going to take money. So I'll probably live and die with a horse that's over 26, which is certainly not the way I typically do things, but I do think this horse has a chance.
And dropping from the maiden special, there are a lot of horses dropping from maiden special into this claiming race to just make the handicapping even murkier. And I don't know how much Laurel you watch, but those mile and a 16th races where you have the field spread by like 30 lengths down that long stretch, there's a lot you can read into tripwise and things like that. So I can maybe understand some of the appeal because the horse was at least passing some of the weaker ones on the tougher Maryland circuit. You have to imagine that in Manitoba, that might translate better. But Do you not have a worry that this is a one-turn race, second start off the bench like that, and this is a horse that is consistently a closer? Like, I see the 2 as a potential use, because that race 3 starts ago is okay. And I feel like if she can work a trip where she's not on the lead, but she's sitting in that second or third flight, she may be able to have more use inside of this race. But I do understand your point that at 3-1 on the morning line, there are probably others who give a lot more value in this race because no one really stands out. The 1's probably going to fire out of there, but again, that's another one that just makes me think the speed's going to be weak. I feel like that makes the job of the 9 trickier. The 10's also dropping from maiden specials, and is there any realm of possibility the 10 tries to just fly out of there? Because that's the only way I could see her as a contender.
Now, she does get a jockey switch also, but it just seems to me that there's a lot of horses that want to be forward here that never seem to want to finish. The 8, the 9, the 10. I could see the 1, like you mentioned. The 6 has shown speed in the past. And then you have, some others that are underexposed that might want to go forward in this race. So that's what makes me like the 3 even more, that it could get very chaotic up front. This horse is second back and probably should produce the best effort. They are reaching for a top rider here. So it is a very difficult race, and there's not many horses that would surprise me in here, especially if maybe a couple don't break and maybe somebody finds themselves on the front by themselves. It's one of those races. So in one of those races, I want to take a price.
Yeah, I mean, the 2 for me at the end of the day, as much as you don't want to use Chalks as a defensive use, she's a defensive use for me because I could see her putting in an effort she has before and it being viable inside of this race. But in all honesty, the horse that interests me the most in this race is the 5 Twilight Ride at 40-1. I probably would say that that's my top pick here just because no one else stands out. And to your point, there are some horses that are underexposed here. You look at this one specifically. On debut, didn't have a clean break. Tough to really read into then what could she actually offer. Next out, she broke through the gate before the race started, and who knows how that impacted her performance. She's adding blinkers now for this start, third start in the career, and she's a 4-year-old too. So maybe there's a little bit of extra fitness added on to it. I think she adds some intrigue as an underexposed type, especially with that morning line price. Also gets a notable rider switch by the looks of it to Stevenson. Gets a good draw as well. Another one where if they land into the second or third flight when all the speed is cratering, could just be in the right spot and have everything come together to find that win. Like this reads to me like a horse you're supposed to find at Assiniboia Downs, don't you think?
Yeah, and I don't mind that one, actually. You make a couple good points there. You could talk me into pretty much anything, but the barn here also is very sharp. There, Jason Homer, 9 for 20 so far at the meet. You get blinkers here. You get a drop. You mentioned the rider switch. So, yeah, 40-1 morning line. This probably a horse that after you talked about it, I probably would have to add to tickets, especially off that morning line. It's definitely going to play great in this pick 4. And really, I mean, if you don't like the favorites, if you're going to spread with prices in this race. If the 9 wins, this pick 4 is not going to pay much anyway. But I do think that this is a race you can kind of get creative in.
How about that next leg, though, with a 6-5 shot on the morning line? Another one where I don't know that I want to use them. Like, she is making a drop from $10,000 into this $5,000 claiming race going 5.5 furlongs. Tired on the lead last time as the favorite. It seems like the trip really didn't work out. Am I wrong? Am I underestimating this filly just because I want to try and beat that potentially short price, or is she one that I actually should respect?
I do think you should respect her because if you look back, she was racing in much tougher spots prior to that race last time, and that one, that 3 Life 10 claimer was tougher than usual there on July the 8th. Those were better horses there. Now drops to 5. I do think the speed will be an advantage. And if you look at this one's back lines, like even last year, faced horses like, Kate's Princess, that horse would be 1-50 in this race. So that's the problem here is a lot of these, horses are 5 claiming 2 life types. I do think this horse has an advantage and was very game last time in that race. So I do like her and probably would run a lot of my play through her in this race. I do think she plays very well here.
That's a really aggressive drop considering that she was in those optionals without a tag.
Mm-hmm.
And after losing there, they're deciding to put her in for 5. Does that maybe not worry you, or do you think that's a situation where they're just really looking for the win?
Yeah, because those are just too tough for her. And to race in those races, there's a big difference between the condition races here and those allowance type races. Because if you look at those races, a lot of those horses have a ton of wins that can show up and go in for 12,000. And they're going to beat up a horse like this that still has conditions on her card. So I just think that the class level alone makes a huge difference for her. And look, she was favored last time in that race. That was a better field. I do think that she's supposed to win here, unless you get something more from the 6 who showed up last time in a 2 life and was able to win. It's going to have to improve that figure, though. I do think that it looks good on paper, but versus the 5 here, I do think this morning line does suit and fits, and I do think she will be tough to beat in this spot.
And that was another thing that made this race harder for me, because you and I both followed these smaller circuits. When you have horses moving up off of a win,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of times on these smaller circuits, it's harder to see them get a win in their next start. Usually they're more of like a second or third place more likely, because it is just inherently tougher. And these are a lot of horses where they're not racing to their best consistently, and they're trying to find trips, and they may happen into that win and then have to go into even deeper waters to find more. So what do you do with the 3 horses coming in off of wins here? I think in some ways you might want to avoid them because the win is going to make people want to put money through them. But this is another race where it's tough to really glean what form exists unless you just single the chalk.
Yeah. And I hear that, and you look at the 6 Unknown Caller. I mean, that barn is 37% so far at this meet. And a lot of those horses that he is bringing in has a lot of shippers that he is winning with. But the difference between 10 2 lives and 5 2 lives here, it's very negligible. And that horse got a trip up front last time and a 48 1/2. So I don't think that he gets that, or she gets that in this race. And that's the thing. The thing about the 1 by request, she was supposed to win that race last time. She was favored. Dusk is a horse that I wouldn't give you for a nickel in this spot. I didn't like her in that spot. And the fact she was supposed to win, now she has to step up. Now, here's another one from a very sharp barn, but I do think this is a significantly a bigger rise in class than it looks on paper. I know going from 2 life to 3 life, but the caliber of horses that the 5 has been facing is better than that of the 1. So yeah, I would avoid some of these horses coming off wins here, and we'll see if they can beat the 5.
Okay, maybe this is a situation then where I'll adjust my opinion and make the 5 my A, and then as B's, the 8 does intrigue me just because she could again land into a good spot, and we saw 2 starts ago she was able to win off of a trip where from post 8, I think you have to work. You're not going to be flying out of there to get right to the rail and to the lead, because more than likely you're going to be 3 wide and take yourself out of the mix. But you're more likely to nestle yourself in behind what could be a hot pace, because the 7's got speed, the 6 has speed, 5 of course has speed, the 4's probably got to push out of there too. So maybe for me 5 as an A, 8 as a B. Do you think the 4 is worth using?
I mean, that's another one, beat by request the time before. I'm not sure that one's fast enough. I would be more likely to use your 8, because you mentioned could get the right trip in the race, has shown speed in the past, did sort of get that stalking type win back on June the 25th, that with a nice figure, and then sort of regressed last time. That would be the one that would be more interesting for me, and maybe uses a B type along with the 5. As far as the 4, I just think that one has to step up, isn't quite fast enough, and probably doesn't get the right trip in here.
Yeah, the 47 3/2, that one lost ground, so it seems less like the only appeal then is she was able to follow from those fast fractions and then reel in the tired ones, but it's also tough to tell how much she was actually saving herself while everyone else was tuckering themselves out, and how much then that's really a measure of what power she could bring on the move up in class. So I'll probably stick 5 as an A, 8 as a B, and move on to the last leg, which I'm going to tell you right now, I have no opinion on. I keep looking at this race. I have no clue where to even start. And so I was really hoping then I could kind of pick your brain, because this is another race where we have one of those big morning line favorites. with Market King at 3-2, coming in off of Endless Claims, dropping in tag off of a claim. I granted lost last time, but this is another situation where I just have no clue what to do with that favorite.
Yeah, I'd definitely be against this one here. I know that this jockey won with this horse last time. This horse lost at 1-9 for 7,500 and is now in for 55. So just not my type whatsoever. And you can see, I mean, 11 lifetime wins, and this horse typically does come to play. It's certainly well bred. I mean, they paid $550 as a yearling a long time ago for that one, and you end up at Assiniboia, but has made some money, is going to take money in here. But I just don't like the barn switching from Jared Brown to Murray Duncan, who has just one win so far at this meet. So this would be a horse that I would definitely want to oppose in here. And I think you can use some prices. The 2 Dragon Drew is 20-1 morning line. And, Pruitt's been riding very well as an apprentice jockey. She has 7 wins, but she's gotten a few of those quite in the last couple of weeks here. So starting to figure it out. I know it's an 0-for-18 barn so far, but this horse was claimed the last time and has been speedy. That 62 figure last time plays well versus these. I do think at this distance could pop the gate again. And this apprentice jockey is gaining confidence by the day. I think that she plays well in this ticket, especially off that morning line. Definitely a use for me. The 5 Best of Greeley's another one I could use. A 10-1 morning line was claimed last time. Now this barn is 33% at the meet. Has prior back lines here that are very good. It's 4 starts at the track, 2 wins, 2 third-place finishes. And this one can stock from off the pace and has also won up close. So I do think that, again, at that high morning line, you get a jockey switch. There's things to like barn switch, jockey switch, 10-1 morning line, auto use for me in this race. And then another price is the 9 Gracious Cat, 20-1 morning line here. A nice galloping win. Watch that replay on July the 9th. I mean, the horse on the front had gotten away. And this one just tracked that one down late and just dug through the stretch. Now you get claimed, stepped up. I like this horse off that line. If you can repeat that one, especially, with that big morning line, again, I don't like the favorite. Fits on figures. There's things to like about this one also. So I'm looking for a price to get out. I was 259.
Yeah, I was opposed to the 9 at first because I thought the pace set up for her to reel them in. But then the thing that I just saw was she was like 4-5 inside of that race. And so I'll give her a little bit of a allowance on that, even though the pace probably did help her win by as much as she did. She at least was expected to perform well. And that does signal to me that she could probably handle the move up. And from that outside post, she's going to have to come from off of it. So if she has that type of kick, or he has that type of kick, then you're going to at least get the right price on him inside of a race like this. Market King, the other thing that doesn't appeal to me about him is that he is such a speed type from that wide draw, and I don't see any possibility that he beats the 1 or 2 out of the gate. And that's also what doesn't appeal to me with Dragon Drew, because he's got another really good breaker to his inside, and unless Kiera can get one jump better, I don't really know that I want to gamble on the lead being that decided. This looks like another race where the speed collapses, but you can attest to this too. Assiniboia is such a weird track in this way. And I think a lot of these like smaller circuit tracks work like this too, where it's just sometimes, even if the form doesn't read that way, a horse like the 1, if they have that speed, they're on the rail. Sometimes things just connect and they spurt away from them. And that to me is what makes handicapping these last few races really complicated, because at least with the maidens, you have a sense of who they are and you have a sense that maybe they can improve. With the racehorses, it feels a lot more like a grab bag, and you're kind of pulling at the slot machine somewhat, hoping that you get that surprise effort to come through. And that's part of what I think has been appealing for betting these races at Assiniboia specifically, is that you will get those surprises. It's not as conclusive as, computer figures and stuff like that can make, but I'll add your 9. I think as an A type here. I agree with the 5. I was kind of wondering how much that one also has just been aided by proper setups, but if I'm looking at this race to also collapse, then he's probably going to be in the right spot. The 6 is interesting to me just because Off the Claim has that type of race that I was talking about, where even if there's a lot of competition for the lead, they may be able to just brave through it. That's what they did last time to win at this level, at 7-1. But you also have to wonder, is there a bouncing coming then? Was that like that big of an effort for that horse that if they get into that situation again, they tuck her out? So maybe the 6 is a B for me, and then my A's are the 5 and the 9. But I'm going to be honest, it's super begrudging. Again, I have a really hard time building a good opinion on this race because like I can see all the different ways it plays out, but none of these horses really give me much confidence. So I think at the end of the day, the best way to go would be to just spread with horses that are going to give you the right prices. Like the 2, you're probably going to get a good price on, even though I think he doesn't really have a great chance to win. And this looks like that type of race where something like that is going to come through. But if I'm handicapping, I can only land on the 5 and 9.
Yeah, a couple notes. The 1 is actually a really nice horse. I'm just, for this horse to get claimed into a 1 for 20 barn. But I will say that this one, was favored last time versus similar horses. And, it's just different connections. So, but he is a very nice game horse, won a couple races last year versus tougher horses. The thing about the 6, the jockey got his one and only win so far at the meet last time on this horse. And early, this is a tough race, but I do think that it presents some value, especially if you can get the right setup, the right horse to get down to finish out the pick 4. And Ray, so dollar minimum, I do think that this ticket is going to pay some money if you can get it right at Assiniboia. I think it's worth jumping into. The pools on Tuesday have been massive, well over 100,000. So again, get in on Assiniboia.
Oh, absolutely. That first leg, it looks like it might be able to play simply, but as the sequence goes, the doors open, the more chaotic outcomes where it might be better to integrate, your skills of gambling and handicapping. Sometimes you don't want to gamble purely on what you handicap. And Assiniboia has at least been friendly in that way, where if you take those chances and just try to accept long prices for what they are, sometimes they come through.
This has been a production of the Money Media. Ray, what do you got going this week? I know we're doing some things for the network. You're certainly helping out with a lot of different things, but what else you got going on?
Yeah, it's all Hambo all the time the rest of this week. Got some stuff to do for the media ahead of the Hambletonian draw tomorrow. That takes place at some hotel in New Jersey. I don't remember which one specifically, but then we have our roundtable show on Thursday night. It's going to be you. It's going to be me. It's going to be Thomas Svensson. It's going to be Garnett Barnsdale. And I believe Adam Bowden's coming back from Diamond Creek Farm as well. That's going to be a live show where we're going to look at the greatest day in harness racing. That'll be this Thursday night. I don't think we have a time stamped down yet, but I'm sure people can block out their whole night for us, and then we'll tell them what hour and a half we're specifically going to occupy.
Yeah, and it's Whitney week also, and then you get on the network for tons of coverage from Saratoga. We got coverage from Ellis this week, coverage from Del Mar. There's so much on the network, so get in on the YouTube channel, check out the audio side. You can sign up for the free newsletter. There's just so much going on the network, but get in on Assiniboia. Check out these pick 4s, especially Tuesday and Wednesday nights. Next week, PTF for this podcast for the Manitoba Derby. So check that out. Also, I think we're going to be live, do a little live stream next week for that. Ray, appreciate having you. Talk to you soon.
Yeah, I just hope that my picks are good.
They'll be good. We'll see y'all next time.